I would like to extend a warm welcome to all the participants and Tashik Telek, everyone. And I would like to thank Tenzin Lakwala for doing the translation for Geshe La today. And I would like to remind you about the schedule of the teachings. And the next class will be on the 14th of July and on the 20th of July. And the next one will be on the 14th. The next class will be on 14th of July, 20th of July, August 14th and 25th, September 1st and 22nd, October 6th and 27th, November 10th and November 17th. And the time will be the same from 3 p.m. until 4:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. And now I would like to recite the prayers. So I invite you all to keep your microphone muted, and we will begin with the prayers. So taking refuge and generating bodhicitta, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulation of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulation of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulation of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. For immeasurables, may all sentient beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May all sentient beings not be separated from the bliss that is free of suffering. May all sentient beings live in equanimity, free from attachment and hatred towards those near and far. May all sentient beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May all sentient beings not be separated from the bliss that is free of suffering. May all sentient beings live in equanimity, free from attachment and hatred towards those near and far. May all sentient beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May all sentient beings not be separated from the bliss that is free of suffering. May all sentient beings live in equanimity, free from attachment and hatred towards those near and far. And now I would like to invite Geshe La to begin the teaching, Nagarjuna's letter to a friend, and I would like to thank again Tenzin Lakpala for translating. Thank you, Geshe La. You may begin.
네, 그상만 가르쳐 되지. 시작금치지. 가면 직지. 네, 그다 도망가서 뒤에 가서는 한번 그거 공부하세요. 네, 밤마스 같은 좀 메시지. 네, 줄라네. 년대 일하게 봤어. 년대 일하게 봤다네. 소주보다 네 매진 받는 매장을 주고 좀 네, 네, 다 장라서 좀 뒤면 가서 봄. 매대치도 누가 로다 가라서 되는 샷 니마직 선유 잡시 네 발레다체 니네 일하게 네 디줄라 아는 요몬 타타스 다도자 나선나 유튜브 네 차과다 네 ngaja라 속 어떤 리트도 자 뭐마다 안에 녀몽이 삼상 되지 삼마탄세 근데 줄라는 용아 류당아 아니 주바든 안에 파여도 되지 되고도 삼 아니 내 검자 남기나 시 집어지자 아디 소포든 좀 안에 검자 내 생겼는지 아 류다스 니가 혈려서는 우종 탄숨다 안디 줄라 되지라
Just like every session that we begin, we're going to start with the reflective meditation on what we have studied during the previous session. So first, we think about the the actions, that is, reverence towards one's parents, the importance of the reverence towards our parents. And then afterwards, we think about the 8 Mahayana precepts and the taking of 8 Mahayana precepts with the practice of fasting. And then after that, we think about how to see the afflicted mind as the true enemy that leads us to suffering. So therefore, we're going to proceed the session like every other session that we have done, when we are going to do the reflective meditation on these. So before you start meditating, sit in a most comfortable posture that you can, and then start with 3 cycles of inhalation and exhalation. Slowly inhale 3 times and exhale 3 times, and then in the progression, reflect first on reverence towards parents, and then afterwards the 8 Mahayana precepts, and then finally think about how to see the afflicted mind, such as the lust or the attachment and the hatred, as the true enemy that leads us to suffering.
나도 이제 안에 그래서 아주 네 정보 방매제 치즈 파도 좀 왔다 빼드는 숨쉬 셔야 봐. 뒤도 어제 배낭데 뒤도 어제 여러분은 안그마데 작바지도 한다. 배군제세 작바들 해다다 펜버스 지금 많이 벌 레지도 왔대 강라. 미투즈 파도 들어가서 근데 그런 게 작바전 미망 중고 있어라. 좀좀좀 단님 빠지 그런 안에 네 게시 랑당배스다. 게시 바전 나로 담아인 그래. 가다배 계획도 체. 근데 그런 배 초바 쇼산 주변 염려 쇼산 담아되는 그런 게시 배군제스는 맞서만 미상마 신한 지역에도 치수 미상마 배트 개개인도 참 배트 다 추인해서도 되는 차요. 어디다 되나지 다지다 망보 열었다. 어디도 담보 박매 시버 제대나 치수 안에 교화드네. 근데 받았다 맞아야 돼. 그래서 소원을 주다. 배전도 직 표현한도 되네요. 되네 망보였다. 지도 밀려라고 때 담보 판막에 때 남미들은 안에 아시안다 오던데 또 보시보다 안에 아마게 다시는 지도 그때 도장 안에 세라빠 안에 시버지 받고 가서 시즌에 교과제 안에 남마다 추진 니에네 담아들은 세다가랑 안에 상제했었다. 근데 그다 누가 제가 얘나야 세다가랑 내가 제가 답람이 어렸다.
Now about the actions, the heedfulness and the unwholesome actions. So just like we have studied, or we have already discussed in the previous class about few of the examples in India, where a person initially being very indulged in the unwholesome actions, later on by the practice of heedfulness has attained the state of arahants. There are also such examples even in Tibet. So one of the most infamous sort of like the one of the most infamous bandit called Kunke in Tibet initially indulged greatly in the actions of unwholesome deed, where he used to rob people, kill people. Later, by the practice of heedfulness, he had become one of the most renowned Kadamba Geshe, most probably Geshe Langri, who is known throughout Tibet as one of the greatest masters. And then another example is the example of Milarepa, so who during his childhood and youth was greatly mistreated by his uncle, and by the instruction of his mother, he took revenge upon his uncle and auntie by raining hailstorms on them and then killing many of the relatives. And afterwards, succumbed by his guilt, he went to his Lama. And then, according to the instruction of his Lama, he practiced his whole life and finally attained enlightenment. So, therefore, it doesn't matter if one has already indulged greatly in the unwholesome actions. If one is able to bring oneself into the path of heedfulness, one definitely can, and one definitely can improve themselves and attain a state where they become heedful person.
다 되지. 다 드린 게 가도 돼. 뭐지? 다 드린 게 되더라도 정화 받으래도 정화 받에 소박고 맞다. 소배 소박고 되더라도 다 소박고 되는 지단데 치고란처나 시팅디 치더라 수중 그도 매제베스 최저 초밥 고급 이미지스 초밥방 침이 또 번지 토버주가 산제 샤제시스 스제 담보들라네 소바는 진짜 소바 때문에 그것도 메서다 어디나 진 소바데 안에 그것도 그초레스 세상에 되는 콘도 잡아니나 제요 말스 그런 게 소바데 방마이나 안에 실메도 산제고 뭐토 그랬어네 전에 좀 됐다 이제 샤제시 송요레스
So today we're going to continue our session on Nagarjuna's letter to a friend. So today we're going to discuss how to practice patience, the practice of patience. So Nagarjuna says, since there is no penance like patience, you must give anger no opportunity to arise. The Buddha promised that by giving up anger, one will attain the irreversible stage. So this first verse, so Buddha says that there's no hardship like patience, and then if one perseveres in the practice of patience, one will attain the irreversible stage, and then irreversible stage towards liberation. So therefore, Buddha says that there is no practice or there is no hardship like the practice of patience.
그래서 다 소바 검도전에 다 콘도게 소바데 콘도 님보인 봤었다 다 콘도 되게 아니 다 제단 게 배전나나 콘도게 계산 준비해서 님이 먹고 싶으시었다 그래서 마셔야 되거든요 아주 대 배전 사사 말이라 그래서 나도 시험 몇 가지 제단 게 콘도게 다 되자서 그러다 차단이 영화 값서 가잖아 콘도 나 값서 콘도 난세 유되게 아니 뭐였네 줄래 좋다 다 먼저 배전하는 시험에는 준비 이제 남도 쓰고라 준비 이제 남도 좋다네 유형을 내줄래 학바지다 콘도만 한 걸라데 유대 뱃 메도바 쇼스 데 스페셜다 뱃 도자 쇼치 데 젠전에 유대로 초 콘도 나는 거스 다 콘도 나는데 표저 유대 멜레바 쇼 통용 멜레바 통해야 돼 체가 되지다 삼레 스페셜 준비 이제 남도 봤어요 제가 관계 안에 콘도로 또 되자지에 가서 주요대 뱃 예동만 쇼치 스페셜 삼로 뭐는 내줄 하바지 대전에 차단지 차단이 제대다 저거 요들을 제세 요데 뭐는 내줄 하고 좋다 지금 콘도게 멜렉바 좋다 안에 되자지에 가서 지메 전남도게 렉바 좋다 대왕간 차단이지
So since patience is the antidote of anger, and there are numerous faults of anger, so we will not be discussing all of those in this class because it will take a lot of time. So when we talk about the particular, that is anger, we talk about two main things, which is the attachment and hatred. So what happens is because of the non-valid cognition, the mind tends to exaggerate over the object of cognition. So the mind, what it does is that in terms of anger, what it does is that it perceives the object to be disgusting, and it makes the object that we perceive to be disgusting and repugnant to such a degree that we develop a sense of hatred and rejection towards it. Whereas in case of attachment, it's the opposite. The non-valid cognition, what it does is that it tends to exaggerate the object of perception in such a way that it tends to exaggerate and then attach certain type of exaggeration towards the property, making it more sort of to make it more lovely than it actually is. And because of this, we tend to develop the mind of attachment. So therefore, both the attachment and hatred comes from the exaggeration of our mind, which is due to the non-valid cognition that perceives the object.
됐다. 콘도는 되네. 당한 저기 콘도니 뭐 소발에 쇼도 줘봤다 요 말스. 그래서 나 콘도 랑차바인데 람상 까토 가고. 그래서 당번에 콘도 랑사에 삼상 값선에 섭사시에 패키지 말스. 그래서 이제 콘도 랑 요들라 참자나 안에 콘도 소소 콘도 랑마다 패저 요디 소소 삼만에 신기 배가 직시하게도 삼만라 써봤다. 다치네. 저거도 다 딘데스 남도진요. 남도왕 코로나 아니고. 다 가셔야 하는 거에서 그런 표현에 직시하는데 직접 락바도 안에 콩도데 나사 요데 직접 쓰지. 직접 쳐놨어. 거자인데 다 소바데 안에 직접부터도 반 매웠어야겠다. 락자도 있어다. 지나가 콘도 망자지 직접부터는 시행도 되는 표조직. 아니 콘도랑 전에 다 대시에 가서 가지고 콘도 소바 가는 공소 다 콘도 랑사래다. 삼상가 센터도 안에 대시 봐야 되는 건데 섭섭체 어떤 데 아니 컨데스 콘도 만랑 소도 세저라 뭐 딘데게 아니 다번에라 베트 섭섭체 데 캐치 버렸어 콘도 지금 랑사바 있는 남사 데 갑도그란 님부터 가보자 그랬어.
So when we talk about anger, it's always better to take prevention rather than trying to stop it when it arises. Because when someone is in the influence of anger, it is very difficult to stop that particular emotions. So usually it happens because of the exaggeration of the mind, the sort of like the mind exaggerating over the object. So it says that there's a saying that says that patience is like the armor against this harsh speech. And many a times what happens is that when we are angry, we tend to think that the person that we are angry towards is saying something which is rather insulting or something that is harsh towards us. And sometimes that may be the case, but many a times it's our mind that is trying to create that type of delusion. And because of which we tend to go towards tend to incline towards that particular emotions. And therefore we come under that particular sort of emotion of anger. So it's and then we act upon it. So therefore it is always better it is always better to prevent anger rather than trying to stop when one is already in its influence, because it's very difficult to stop when one is already under its influence.
이제 다디 소파가면 되지. 근데 니바텔라 다디 조스도 가서 사서 말했어. 디스 조르조르 당이스. 니바데 다디레도 디스. 니바데라 된다. 주룩 받으래도 다네티지 대답 판바체스. 다 데이터네 톡바 주듯이스. 근도 준비 톡로 남게디. 근데 남반 대바니지로스. 다디 니바데게 안에 콘도 제베 줄라 안에 kunze se ya kondo top san ta te pa jo de se tu xia ba na re jo de ge go go ta ina re ta kare na ji ge ge kondo na ya kondo la ma je la ta pa de sem da kondo ge ju de ma nyar de sem na ira kunze lo ta kondo ju de be nyar de be sem na da ko len shi pa lo san de ane sem na nyar ju ma res ka se de mo tu nyar de ba ina ne thong long cha ta pa 초보셔야 다 써셔야 다 대견전에 다 그렇게 해서 말아 휴수 나는 찍고 거 당서서 sem나 녀들 단님들 강도도 다시 내줘도 sem나 녀들 와나 두번만에 주랑 쳐그랬어 데 컨트롤 랑사나 차르다 컨트롤 랑 조라 셈나 녀에메스 데 상파 레탕스 그래서 때 셈나 녀데와이나 셈게 데르스 데 괜히 셈나 괜히 그랬어 괜히도만 요버스
The second verse, that is, I was abused by this, bound by this, defeated by this. This one has snatched away my property. Such harboring of resentment produces quarrels. By giving up resentment, one will have peaceful sleep. So the second one talks about resentment or the grudge that we hold towards people who have made us angry. And then we tend to keep that sort of emotion of resentment with us, thinking that we should take revenge. We should somewhat take give certain answer to certain mistreatment that was done to us. But the problem is that the more you keep the resentment in your heart, it leads to greater conflict. It leads to greater arguments. One keeps that in their heart, and when one keeps that in their heart, they think about all those insults, all those mistreatment that was done to them, and then at a certain point, it leads to causing great arguments. So these sort of resentments are like trash of the mind or the heart, and one should always discard these trash from their mind or their heart.
저게 데 군대에서 이제 셈나 녀에다 컨트롤 랑까야 니쳐봐나 군대 녀에데 그가 파파에 줘라 매웠어요 this 레라 컨트롤서 탑다올라 뺐대구나 이더래 가서다 산놈 잡았는데 저 남상 뺐 다스 디 소와점부터 센시티브 소 좀 쉬웠다 컨트롤서 산놈들도 있는 남상 매치 받는 남상 받쳐줘라 데이드는 배 남상데 가고 쉬웠어 더 컨트롤 랑아줄라 군대데 this 매웠어요 this 레라 제가 컨트롤 탑 나가나 데 쪽라는 군대데 나면 예요 말 어떤 컨트롤 랑사 살았어 컨트롤 랑사나 살에 너를 수는 수쇼에는 너를 쇼는 쇼스 수저 너를 쇼는 건달라 배조된 너를 쇼는 원래 맞아요 그런 너를 쇼선 근데 소소스는 컨디션 페메 컨디션 예대반은 나다 써요 셈나 나다 써요 컨디 직니서 숨살 컨디 야 편치 뭐 쇼 차다 보이나 어떤데 안에 소소 나자래 셈 나자래 맞다 되게 편도 잡아내네요 맞어 근데들 남상마 60% 더러거를 셈나
So it's always so when we talk about the two, which is stopping the anger or discarding the resentment, it's always easier to discard the resentment because when one comes into the influence of an anger, it's just like the kerosene it's like a kerosene which is very inflammable. Once it catches the fire, it combusts in a very small duration of time. So similarly, when one tends to go in the inclination of anger, it just takes a short duration of time when they explode into the anger. And it's very difficult to stop that particular emotion. Whereas resentment is much more easier than discarding the resentment is much more easier than stopping the anger. So even when one has come into under the influence of anger, they have become angry at someone, one should tell oneself, okay, now I have already become anger towards that person. I've already shown them anger. I shall not hold on to the resentment. If it was my mistake, I apologize for my mistake. If it was someone else's mistake, and then that other person may not have confessed to their own mistake, just tell to yourself that, oh, doesn't matter. It was their mistake, so I just forgive them. So it is very much important to discard the resentment. So if you pile all the resentment, so you pile one resentment, then you pile the second one, the third one. At the end, you have a great pile of resentment in your heart. And all of these resentment is nothing but mental sickness that is going to follow you and that is going to give you a great deal of suffering. So it's always better for your own sake to give up on those resentments.
나한테 네 줍된 받으나 맞습니다. 데려자 고숨지 줘봐쳐도 다대 간데서나 소소를 영화 했음지 줘봐간데 막 딱받쳐야 돼. 데디케이션 맞죠. 남자 진도 안에 소소하게 르고는 저 바카르치도 야가치도 되고치도 대나신데 나 아니 예지고네 저 바카르치도 세다디 소소소게 딱제치도 캐치 뭐죠. 아니 소소게 명아 예수입니다. 딱제치네 소소게 도가 치기도나 어떠저나 도가 치기도 왔어. 봐. 잠시에 야가치도나 소소소나 그 개박kom이야. 가박kom이지. 제수이란 제지. 제수이란 제도가 있나 소소 제수 야보체나 제수연 젠나 되고 때는 지금 몇 시간 밖에 야보체도는 내가 저도 맞죠. 제수이란 제바나 소소게 개발 납치물 세우. 결라 제수이란 초인도 다들 개발라 제수이란 제도가 있나 아니 개발 초인. 아주 소소남 사고도 되네. 내가 버티는 사나사이. 그저 야보체도는 왜 그래도 삼상 제수이란 제도가 있나 소소라 개발 받도 못 사요. 소소 야보체는 드링가 야보체인다 삼상게 제수이란 다 앞에서 저는 최고만 염려 생각인데 님은 인가지도 다 공단 얘가 나는 삼당 왔어도 어디는 걸 가르쳐도 야 가르쳐도 또 가르쳐도 누가 제대로 줘봤지 야가 잡았던 날 소소서 재수 이런 책 어딘데 제대로 나네요 네 님에 딱 와다 치고다 돼 어디 제대로 봐야나 소소 그 공단에 교와 쌓여나 그렇지 재수 이런 책 아니 몇개 받는 쌓여나 어디라 줘봤지 어딘데 전 이거는 지우셔서
So okay, so now the third one is analyzing the conduct of the body, the speech, and the mind. So one should always analyze their conduct or their actions of the body, speech, and mind. And then whenever they have done something wrong, whenever they have not conducted themselves correctly, they should feel sort of guilty towards that and then have the aspirations to correct what mistakes that they have made. And whenever they come across the analysis that they have done something which is considered a correct conduct of the body, speech, and mind, they should rejoice in that particular action. It is not only in their own action, one can rejoice, definitely rejoice in one's own sort of proper conduct of actions, but one can also rejoice in someone else's achievements, someone else's proper conduct of their body, speech, and mind. And so, therefore, it is said that out of all the methods in accumulating merits, the practice of rejoice is the most excellent. It is because it is one of the most easiest way of accumulating merits. When you simply rejoice in your own action, as well as when you rejoice in someone else's action, you accumulate a vast amount of merits. So it is said that a true practitioner, at the end of the day, they would do a reflective meditation in which they would reflect upon everything that they have done from the very moment that they woke to the point where they are reflecting right now. And then they will analyze on the action and the conduct of their body, speech, and mind. And so throughout the day, if they have done something, some action that is through the body, speech, and mind, which is of the fault, they would feel guilty about it, and then they would aspire to correct those actions. And when they would analyze and find that they have done something good, something proper according to the conduct of the body, speech, and mind, they will rejoice in their action. So therefore, they would do that, and they would check their actions each and every day as part of their daily practice.
뭔데 다드네 안에 디 구숨지 줘봐 제도들라다 suggest 디 컨스 쇼로가 숨다 담보되는 셈니 추다 사단 도발라스 레모트바 텐더 리퍼티스 테나 뇨모 전다 담보는 초대 추되는 거 타만라스 담보데 가서는 맞아 삼로 줘라 매기 삼로 들라다 개바다 지금 숨지어로 개바다 매고 농마다 내가 가서 개바다 매고 니셔도 개베스템다 뇨모 전지 셈니 딱 개발진다 녀모든지 니시베 가서 딱 그냥 빼차잖아. 저기 실록이 최질라. 답에 레몬을 빼잖아. 쳐봐나. 매직 레몬 쳐봐나. 슈간을 레몬 쳐봐지. 안돼 사간을 레몬 쳐봐지. 내간을 레몬 쳐봐. 레몬 좀 레몬 메로숨. 슈간을 쳐봐지. 안에 사간을 쳐봐지. 내간을 레몬 쳐봐. 그랬으네. 딱 개별쌤대 remote 안에 대강로 집어넣지 remoteres. 안에 녀몽 전제 쌤들도 안에 추강로 집어넣지 remoteres. 춘당로 집어넣지 remote 벌써다 템보요 말했어. 개별쌤서도 안에 템보쇼를 변해 대강로 remote 집어넣지 뒤로 모시고 내도. 그래서 개별쌤 템바대 안에 나네 따라고 그랬어. 메템바 안에 녀몽 전제 쌤 추나로 remote 집어넣지 안에 돌아고 그랬어.
So when we talk about the first one, it says, recognize the mind to be a drawing made on water, on earth, or on stone. The first among these is excellent for those possessing the defilement, and the last of those desiring dharma. So here, the first verse tells us the type of mind that we possess. So usually we categorize the mind in three, which is the virtuous mind, the mind of defilement, or the afflicted mind, or the one which is known as the intermediate mind, which is neither virtuous nor affliction. So, but in this particular case, we talk about the virtuous mind and the mind of defilement, or the afflicted mind. So when we talk about this, the example that is provided here is the drawing made on water or drawing made on earth or stone. So the mind of the virtuous mind is like the drawing that is made on stone, which is very firm, which is something that is very firm and something that cannot be erased easily. Whereas the drawing that is made on water is an example of the mind of defilement, which is something that that is very spontaneously emerging and spontaneously perishing. It is not stable mind. It is something that comes spontaneously and then similarly recedes spontaneously. So there is no stability in the mind of defilement or the afflicted mind. Whereas in the contrary, the mind of the virtuous mind is firm and is something that is very stable, just like the drawing that is either made on the earth or the drawing that is made on the stone.
개발선데 땜바임에 존재하시오. 다 녀모선데 땜그 말이라라. 다디 간데스 공기월라라. 다 지난 게 녀모 말씀 된저 개발선 배트 매웠어요. 그래서. 빵에 그래서. 딱 녀모 말씀지 개발선 배트 거는 잡아내 매웠어요. 그래서. 딱 하나 배잖아 터마가 강사직 유로 개발다 녀모 말씀 니까요. 그래서. 다 최 냠냠냠 제제제제잖아 녀모 말씀대로는 지금 막 용용용용용돈 근데 개발팀이 또편 타마들라네 남남게네 타바다 탐제점 받는데다 상기바이나 근데 너무 말씀 탐제 매웠어요. 그때는 이제 개발팀데 안에 잠자는 개발팀만 에 숙충도 해야 맞다. 그때 거란 요mon게 심지 개발팀 받 매웠어요. 요 말했어. 그래서 난 개발팀 때 말했어. 너무 말씀데 맞대 말했어. 좀 제대로 들었어.
So one might ask the question, what is the reason for a virtuous mind to be more stable, in contrary to the afflicted mind, or the mind of defilement to be more unstable? The reason is because when we develop a great sort of virtuous mind, we're able to overcome our afflictions. Not only overcome our afflictions, we're able to uproot them within ourselves. And as we continue practicing, what happens is that as the time passes, we develop a more stable and a more firm sort of virtuous mind. And as we are able to develop that sort of firm and stable virtuous mind, we're able to overcome our afflicted mind and uproot them until at last we attain the state of enlightenment, the complete enlightenment. So when we are under the influence of the afflicted mind, what happens is that our virtuous mind becomes weaker. But affliction can never uproot the virtuous mind within ourselves. Every one of us have both the afflicted mind or the mind of defilement as well as the virtuous mind. So it doesn't matter how much of an influence the afflicted mind has over us. It can never uproot the virtuous mind that is in our mind. Whereas when we practice rigorously towards developing a great and stable virtuous mind, we can uproot the afflicted mind. So this is the reason why virtuous mind is more stable and afflicted mind is more unstable.
나 쇼로가 되다 좁제디 가서는 당은 저 나르쇼 나셔도서는 제베 닝라 밥다 템바탄스 로바마데 기분 남기니 등등메도 미장대고 책 남숨까지 텔레 타마방스 당은 저 나들라 차셔봐이나 나들라 넘버 숨도 여왔잖아 접스 나 님바마 왔지 템바마 와 근데 로파마 당 로바마 숨다네 근데 디 당보 님바마 와데 근데 당진 나셔레스 근데 템바마 와데 근데 메토나지 로바마 와데 메자만 나셔레스 디나네 근데 타마데 로바마 와지도 뜻방 거레스 답배 세션한 건데 남자주도 밀어 받게 제시가 갔어요 당보 찍봐 라션트스
So the second one is about the conduct of the speech. So Nagarjuna states, the conqueror taught about three kinds of speeches possessed by people that are the pleasant to the heart, truthful, and wrong. Such words are like honey, flowers, and filth. Abandon the last one of these. So usually when we talk about the speech, there are three types. The first one is the speech that is pleasant to the heart. The second one is the truthful speech. And the third one is the wrong speech or the wrong speech. And as an analogy provided by Nagarjuna, Nagarjuna states that the sweet talk is like the honey, or the speech that is pleasant to the heart is like the honey, whereas the truthful speech is like the flower, and the wrong speech is like the filth, and we should always abandon the last one.
그래서 당한 저기 가서 미래 그저 시에 가서 아니 그저 님 보시고 거야. 그저 뭐죠. 그저 님 보시고 하는 버저 밑에 가도. 딱 그저 버저 직접으로 써봐다 배. 그저 시에 다라는 게 버저 밑에 시메티에 되는 차용으로 몇 가지도 그저 시에다. 그저 시에 다라는 게 버저 나로 삼로 하고 말아. 르다가 좁아도 통도 맞아 세미나를 간대 하고 말아. 몇 가지 삼로 하고 연하냐. 그저 시에다한테 뺐다거나. kumshi 독자 시원했는데 그저 직접으로 써거든. 남의 시장치도 어디에 시험에서 그저 님 보시오시오. 그저 또 시사다 제거는. 어디에 시험에는 이제 캐쳐 버려셔. 내 먼저 안에 답도. 대나시 안에 책 그저 가르치는 템바시오. 한국 적중 시죠. 근데 가래는 템바시오. 다 적중 시험에는 제시니 시험 숨자잖아. 나 그때는 적중 시험을 kum시름. 시험 고려 먹어나 적중 시험. 가서는 kum시름. 다야 참자나야 다 내주 데 상화체고 내주 연구라다 상마술 개갑라요 미켈라요 똑바나요 데려가서 제바이나야 참자나다 하고 밀라다 적준 속으로다 적준에서 받지던 거는 주인다 가족 계산대 내게 주시면 봐 내게 주나나 안에 주인 참마 직접세 망보시 여러 다리나 제 류지거나 소주로서 진짜 렐라면도 쪽벌이한테 제적 가져 참고였다 그런 다들 뭐 번째고라 또 그런 데 딱 내가 캐치 뭐냐 상화체가 되느냐 등간 라기면 납시다 나한테 가서 그런 신발 관계 그런들의 적중 시험 멤버제 그런 신발 관계 안에 신발 납시나냐 주 주장 주도랑 최고 근데 답시요 그래서 다 록뱅 와서는 다 정보만 적중 시에라 안에 직접다 어딘데 그다 가지라서 다 나로 줘라 어딘데 안에 남자친구 빵고 캐치 버렸어 어디서
So whenever we talk to someone, we should always talk to anyone with a pleasant sort of in a very pleasant manner. Sometimes we experience people talking to us, and despite their true intention, maybe they are telling something that benefits us, but the manner of how they speak to us, sometimes they may be using harsh words, sometimes their body language may be very sort of condescending. And because of these reasons, we feel that even if they are saying something good to us, we feel sort of very dejected towards that person. We feel that we don't want to listen to that person. And therefore, it is very important to, when we talk to anyone, to give them proper respect, to use honorifics when possible, at least to speak in a more sort of respectful tone. So therefore, this is the reason why it's very important to adopt a manner of having a speech that is pleasant to the heart. And then the second type of speech, that is the truthful speech, it is very important to always utter the truthful speech, because once someone becomes sort of adapt to lying, they lie one time, they lie second time, and then as the time passes, they become a sort of a pathological liar, someone that just lies without much of consideration. And so it becomes their habituation, and then it becomes, and every time when they speak, they tell a lie. So therefore, whatever they say becomes something that cannot be considered a valid speech. In some cases, we see that certain things needs to be kept secret, certain things that needs to be kept in a confidence. In those cases, one can sort of avert the speech in a way that they may not be lying entirely, but that at the same time may not be revealing the thing that they are keeping secret. In the previous sessions, we have studied about the 10 non-virtuous action. And whenever we talk about the accomplishment, or when we talk about the completion of each of these actions, there are many different sort of components. There are many different components that comes, or factorial sort of cause that comes into play for the completion of each of these 10 non-virtuous action. And then when we think about the intention, and we see that intention is not because one wants to lie in terms of lying, but it is more like to keep things which are supposed to be kept a secret, as a confidence. And then now the third one, the third type of speech, the wrong speech, are the speech where we utter the word that brings division between people, when we utter harsh word that harms other people, that hurts other people. And these are the type of speech that we should abandon.
근데 이제 배는 당한 저 룡아 좁아져라다 딜라 안내 지단 그 대광 그 레사라다 배나 딜 레사바를 지단 그 종의 족성 상고서 줬다 배차찬 당한 저 지글 배차는 시간에 심하고든 소저는 미세베 소저 그 레사발라 종의 족성 상 저와들 배차찬 유저와는 미세나 유 인지미지 미지고 미세 근데 딜라야 세선 백걸롱고 그걸로 매와 배차잖아 근데 이러잖아 다 미디네 다 세모제네 아니 그 세세 거는 중에 뭐 세모제네다 멘다터 버지나래 가는 세모제는 게 아니 남는 몇 표적했네 미싱이 되네요 다 테스트 시시 나 거의 미세베 레스고 아들 레스에게 정말 조금 세게 되나로 미세 삼상 그거는 돼요 그거는 미세 삼상 그거는 다 되지 아니 저와들 안에 다 제자와 나를 맨다 잡아나 간다 제조라 대체 그냥 이제 소주 제고 받아야 미신발 제가 땅 아니나 그저디 런데 메신도 안데 좀 보면 여기 미세가 땅서나 생기들 땅게 되길래서 미세벨레 아니 세세 요대야 소소 메신 거는 것이고 담바 소소 미세가 땅 아니 배가 메시고는 소소 시나 레사야 뭐 것이더라 소소 이나 저바다 에티 무엇이 줘도 적도 줘요 다 간다 예전에 간다 미세베게 년가요 마이나 다지 유천에 여러 저백 가서 유들을 때스 생산 년가 때서 여러 가지나 미세바드나 배잖아 셔도 돼 미야 밀착 발랐다 미야 밀착 발랐더니 샵에 내가 가다 잡에 내가 마시고다 미차신 백 가서 다 아무 고관하는 남시 슈저데 세베 메와서나 미세바 쳐 그런 미세 삼장 메와서다 오퍼션 러라 생산 이제 돌아선 근데 제가 때스 년가였다 미세 레서 제가 요말 좀. 다 된다 저이나 남시 슈자나 다 고메와서 이나 세samsa 그런다 저거 정말상이나 미세벨레니 사이니가 요. 어디지? 딱 같이 셈제질 세sam다 면다 잡는 메르케는 미세와이나 미세데 세르데 미세벨레 사이야. 그래서 정을 조선 차단 사이야.
So whenever we sort of indulge in any actions, any non-virtuous or virtuous actions, to complete the completion of the particular action that leads to arising of karma, is based on the factorial causes. In this case, there are three processes. The first one is the preparation, the second one is the actual action, and the third one is the follow-up of the action. So when we talk about the preparation of an action, so with the example, let's say, of the non-virtuous action of the body, that is killing. So when there is the completion of the non-virtuous action of killing, the first one, which is the preparation, refers to the object of killing. In this case, if we do the action of killing a person, then the object would be a person that we want to kill. So therefore, if there is an object where we have someone that we need to kill or we want to kill, that means that we have already completed the first step of the completion of the non-virtuous action of killing a person, that is the preparation. The second, which is the actual action, refers to the intention. So one might have the intention of, oh, I want to kill this person. So you do the action with the true intention of killing that person. In that case, you have completed the second step, which is the actual action. And then the follow-up. The follow-up means now with that intention and the object, now you go to kill that person. So either you kill that person, or what happens is that you hire someone to kill that person. The requirement states that the condition being that that person should die before you in either case. So if you have the object of killing a person, and then if you have the intention of killing that person, you do that action by thinking that I want to kill that person. And then finally, you follow up with that intention and the object of killing, either by yourself or you ask someone, you hire someone to kill that person, and then that person dies before you. Then all the three steps has been completed, and therefore it's a completion of the non-virtuous action of killing a person. And so there is the arising of a karma of killing a person. Whereas if you hire someone to kill that person, but you die before that person dies, then the first two steps are there. But the third step, that is the follow-up, is no longer there. So these days, it becomes, especially these days, it becomes very we become very vulnerable to these particular steps. For example, we say that the moment when the consciousness enters a sort of like an aggregate of the body, the body or the form, we consider it to be a living. And so these days, when we do the practice like to abort a child, what happens is that we have the child that we abort is a form that already has a consciousness. So therefore, this becomes the actual object of the action of killing a person. And then we have the intention. And then we also have the follow-up. So therefore, because of this, abortion of a child can also be considered a complete action of the non-virtuous action of killing a person. And therefore, there will be arising of karma due to it.
먼저 되나진다 르당아 상마게다 된데게 자바용 조발라 주름 숨도 좀 적고 같대 아치고자 다자다래 이래 시어서는 다 사서마라 어디네 도체 네 어디네 도시라 아니 다텐데 어디라 주고바지도 주고바데다 어디래도 나는 나마트도 문반네스 문바테도 나는 문다다 민은 나마트도 강산니 시대트다 남지 방법주스 하여튼 저게다 강사들나 미든들 밀레도 찾아봐야나 아니 된데스 나가면도 강사들라 강사들라 미스나 강사들라 렉도 시도 옆자시 시대 컨디션스나 나와는 나와 탈도 봤어지 다 변나 에 미다 살았어 같은 전에 제와 제편에 메리티오 미다 파르티오 나와는 나와 탈도 봤어 의미 문반에 나왔다도 봤어. Mubane nawasana ta ngesona sopane ya lat mirchio. Ya, wanda middle half wanda chibarchio. Mubane mebasabana ngeson chete. Ani nawana nawas tradition ani mubane nawasabada middle halatene wanchebane ngeson chebate. Mubane nawat. Tinde shirobita. Katoto chanda dedore. Chesa yawata hada mitene mide chebate nawana nawache. Ani ngeson chebate mubane mubah. Ani hada mi wanda chebane ngeson chebate nawana mebarche. Ta ngesona sopana chen hada mi wanda chebata mubane nawache. Ta je tinde shi yonga de khaja suna ta khang shebe lunga choba chora. Lunga choba ne churim tenjo bang chung res. Ta kete jona ta nga jo shine ani tamade de shine nawana nawa tartu bojora. Dila ani je la beje che res. Ta beje che wate khara che usana ta lunga choba churim yapo song res. Churim yapo so na tenro hada mi chi res. Ta nga jo peji tu na la jibe lonjo timye de se ve tang de se ma peji tu ge so dewo me da bashir. Jibal de na lonjo yung res. Jibe lonjo timye de se churim so na tenro chi res. Sopa ko ba na tang da tem. Dine chi res. Dine se ta dine chona lunga ge churim yapo so na ne hada mi tendo ya. Jeba ya chi res. Ta jeba nga je sha chen che wa ta. Jeba nga je khela ma lang de ka se de ko wa do ina. Yewa ina keyo ma je ala jeba nga je sha ge tendo ge. Dine sha ge do samsam ma so so de kelne ko yo mars. Jeba nga je sha ge de ro dang de re do samsam sem lang ge ta na te mars.
The verse 19, it states, four categories of persons are seen who move from light to ultimate light, dark to ultimate dark, light to ultimate dark, and dark to ultimate light. Be the first among these. So now, previously, as Geshe has explained about the conduct of the body in speech and mind, with the examples. So every action, the completion of every sort of action of the body, speech, and mind, be it virtuous or non-virtuous, require the completion of these three steps: the preparation, the actual, and the follow-up of the action. So now, when we talk about person, that takes birth from that transmigrate from one lifetime to another, there are four categories of person. The first one is known as the person that moves from light to ultimate light. So these are the persons who have all in their previous life, they have either taken birth in the realm of the gods, demigods, or as a human. And then now in their current lifetime, they have again achieved the lifetime as either a human or the gods. So this is known as the person that has moved from light to ultimate light. Now, when we talk about someone that has moved from dark to ultimate dark, it means that a sort of a being or the person that has taken lifetime in the lower realm and in the previous lifetime, and now in this current lifetime, again, they have taken rebirth in the lower realm of either the beast, the hungry ghost, or the hell. These type of rebirth, or these type of person that takes rebirth, that previously was born in the lower realm and again takes rebirth in the lower realm, are known as to move from dark to ultimate dark. And then we have the third one, which is the one that moves from light to ultimate dark. So these are the beings or the person who in their previous life had taken life in a higher realm. And now in this current lifetime, they have fallen to the realm of the lower realm. They have taken birth into a lower realm. So these type of being or person are known as the one that have moved from the light to the ultimate dark. And finally, the being or the person who have moved from the dark to ultimate light are the beings who in their previous life has taken life in lower realm, and now they have taken sort of life in their current lifetime, they have taken rebirth into a higher realm. So these type of being or person are known as the person that have moved from dark to the ultimate dark. And so we should all aspire for the first type, which is to move from light to ultimate light, from a higher rebirth to a higher rebirth. And the way or the means or the method of that particular achievement of that particular goal is to conduct your actions of the body, speech, and mind properly. That is, to persevere in the action of the discipline, which is one of the 6 parameters. So it is said with each parameter. So, for example, it is said that the fruit of the practice of generosity is wealth or fortune. The fruit of the practice of discipline is rebirth in a higher life, rebirth in a higher rebirth. And then the fruit of the practice of patience is heedfulness. So accordingly, there are these sort of like the fruit of each of the practice of the parameters. So we see, according to that particular verse, we see that the practice of discipline leads to a higher rebirth, and we should all aspire for the first type, which is moving from the light to the ultimate light.
这些，你修的这个，你修的没人心，希望现在，你起床了，多久归宿是啥叫做？那第一看的是呢，明年俺们担心妹妹了，明白汤的，明了妹妹这是，妹妹不能，明白那是，明白那些对吧？找到就是，他本来的别着现在行动有了，行动俺们这不那些。네, 안 그때 보내지. 가셔야 니 넘버 시로 다 믿을. 넘버 시 예바치. 예바치는 신 아마 더 같이 아니 치명나 나만 멤버. 가셔 나면나 치면 멤버. 가셔 지난니가 멤버. 나 가셔 지난니가 멤버나 시요레스. 테나시 밀라야 아니 데 삼바 멤버자야 줘봐줘봐요. 나 가셔야 데 삼바 상보이냐. 데 줘봐줘봐요. 가짜 삼전 이게 nemba ane kacha samjo nige sambos inde mi rekhi na ne samba da joba nige ane sanga de la ne tiche wor beto che wor de jongyan.
So the verse 20, which talks about to know the qualities of one's associates. So Nagarjuna states persons should be understood to be like mango fruits, which are unripened yet appears ripe, ripened yet appears unripe, unripened and appearing to be unripe, and ripened ones which also appears to be ripe. So when we talk about the 4 type of person, we also use the analogy of the fruit, that is the mango fruit. So the first type of the person is like the mango that appears to be unripe, but then when we consume it, it is ripe. Then the second one is the one that appears to be ripened, but then when we consume it, it's unripe. Then the third one is one that appears to be unripened, and when we consume it, it's unripe. And the final one is the one that appears to be ripened, and then when we consume it, it is ripened or ripe. So this talks about the person. This is an analogy of the quality of a person with their intention and their sort of conduct, the conduct of the body, speech, and mind. Some people, they may, when we look at them, they may not seem someone that has a good intention, but deep inside they have good intention towards us. The way they speak to us, the way they show their sort of like emotions to us, we feel that that person doesn't have good intention towards us, but truly they have good intentions, which is the unripened yet appears ripe. And then the second one, which is ripened yet appears unripe, is the kind of person that has sort of like, that appears to have like good sort of like conduct, like they show themselves to be very good outwardly, but they don't have good intention towards us. These are the ripened yet appears unripe. Then the third one is unripened and appearing to be unripe. So these are the people, when we look at them, they appear, they conduct themselves in a very disrespectful manner towards us, and at the same time have bad intention towards us. And then the third type of person is someone that outwardly seems someone who is very concerned, who have great intention towards us. At the same time, they in their mind too, they have great intention, good intention for us. So therefore, these are the ones that are that appears like a mango that is ripened, uh, as well as are ripe. So these are the four types of people.
근데 소나 답변은 삼바다 저번 이게 아니 여보 요저저로 다 띵한 적에 영화 찍어버려. 그래서 니네 소속에 안에 삼저로 이게 상고지 뒤따도 땡대바이나 소소라 개매요. 근데 시행라 개매요. 비차잖아 나간저 다 동시에 아니 공사죠. 또 차셔봐 있는다. 배전도 하나 좀 되네 지금 다 자가나나 맞다 드레스 나도 된줄라. 어때냐 시작도 봐야 된다. 그래서 음 mes that's me to do that national dala so mo do 근데 대들은 삼바에나 정말 단정 근데 영화 잡았는데 정말 산장 제주도는 되게 톱아 누가 된절라 때네 근데 미 사야만 보게 아니 쿠셔브라 보지 미 사야만 보게 가고치 자장가 된저가 미 사야만 볼라 선데 시대죠 그때에 아니 가잖아 영화 줘봐다 아니 나로 삼로 대 아니 뱃 이게 상보 신비 코네처럼 삼았던데 되네 되게 누바들 왕게 근데 참 그래서 소소한 거 있나 되나지 삼전 이게 야고치예요 그래서 이 저번에나 소소래나 그게 아니 시나요 그게 어 저 니가라 그게 그래서
So therefore, out of these four, it is always important to have good intention as well as a sort of a good conduct of the body, speech, and mind. This is what we should aspire for. So when we think about examples of the people, we can think about His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama. And in India, we have great figures such as Mother Teresa. And then we have other great figures like Desmond Tutu and Nelson Mandela, who, in their own wise, are people who not only have great intention towards everyone, but also have conducted themselves in a way, conducted their actions of the body and speech and mind in a way that is proper. And because of the power of that particular conduct of their body, speech, and mind, and that intention, they have been able to be or to get veneration by millions of people. Not only that, in their lifetime, they have been able to provide a sort of means and methods of achieving peace of mind to millions and millions of people. And this is all due to their sort of conduct of their the actions of their body, speech, and mind. And so we should also aspire to not only have good intention towards others, but to conduct accordingly with our actions of the body, speech, and mind.
이제 나 뒤죽들 데려다 유목운줄이 님보 검조세 보다 딜라 님보 검조에 가서 당보하는 왕벽 것도 봤어요. 저때 개접죠. 내 담아봐라 내 당보봐라 가서나 대 배전하는 가시에서는 남제 차도다 천면은 매년 내절로 좀 봤어. 근데 아무거나 왕벽 것도 봐라. 왕벽 것도 봐. 남제 차도다 천면은 매년 내절로 좀 봐라. 저런도 다 내가 지금 뭐 손담 비디오 망보지 아니 쇼핑 거다 sen chibude chunyamde je khabo chegres na wangbe godom yede de chetu kure tengdo kazana wangbe godom tene da wangmonga yora wangmonga de godom sidene karso wasana wangmonga de de yula pa chugora yula chugwa kaso ane de ma ka orasda betta kona kaso da yula bena meg wangboge ane yula chugwa tene ane namlola ane de de 되잘라 서버 니모도 지금 데 아니티스 고탕 말했어 답변 찾아봐야나 다 잡아라마 고물을 둑 숨고라 잡아도 저 상반 다 담보들 찾아나 현지 충분히 다 통화 영상 나도 tumba 마다 포마당스 세메도 시티지 착주나 미장니도 양다 삼버주스 뭐다 데이터번에 잡아줘라 안에다 신다게 지미들의 통화나 아니 딜라네 저런 게대 따배 가서 아니 저저 나도 직받아 봐이나 빈자도 겸바이나 답 딜레 아상 데 안에도 요라다 딘데도 중앙에나 다 수지 보건다지 어딘데 돈에 삼았던 걸 뭐또 데 마땅하나 아니 데 뭐보대 봐 커ton도 따자바나 데이팅 되자지 데이팅이야 내가 뭐 무슨 하는 거라 그래서 나 저랑 데데데 뭐뭐 메이크 뭐보대 좀 찾아와나 매일 따배 가서 어딘데 데데 채워라 다데 잡아는 거 수원나지 아니 소소소 아주 데 거기나 소 삼바 소소게 아니 삼았다네 딜레 디셔서 라레테리스
So now the actual antidote towards the afflicted mind. So in this particular section, we talk about how to control the sense organs. So as a practitioner, during the moment that they wake up and the moment before they sleep, they should always conduct or control their sense organ. They should not let their emotions or their mind follow or be inclined towards the sensory sensory perception. So, for example, every time when we talk about the sensory organs, these sensory organs, they tend to sort of perceive they're sort of like the object, and because of that, there is the sort of arising of desire within our mind. So, for example, the consciousness of the eye, when the consciousness of the eye perceives a form, when the consciousness of the eye perceives an object, and if it starts exaggeration upon the object due to its non-valid cognition, what happens is that the rising of desire takes place. And therefore, one should always conduct himself. So in here, Nagarjuna says to the king Gautamiputra, he says, "Do not look upon another's wife, however should you see her. Think of her according to her age, thus as mother, daughter, or sister. If attachment arises, then meditate only on impurity." So here, Nagarjuna says to King Gautamiputra, he says, whenever you see someone else's wife, perceive them according to their age. If they are someone who are elder than you, think of them as your own mother or your auntie. When they are someone who are younger than you, think of them as your sister, a younger sister, or someone that is relatively younger than you. Think of them as your daughter. And by doing this, what happens is that you're able to control the sense organ. You're able to control the sense organ, because of which the impure mind arises. And so therefore, it is a method through which you can conduct your senses, in which you can keep your senses in control.
그래서 내가 이제 대자연이 뭐 믿고 보고 없어요. 다 담아들라. 그동안 아니 로켓바나 아마인바다 성모인바다. 근데 중화든들라 아니 거의 범모다 데이터는 너 잡아 대 도움이든 아닌데 믿고 보고 뭐랬다. 믿고 봐. 믿고 보고 나 당한 배려돼 속고대 상마 치료를 둘러야 돼 보죠. 빡빡여셔만 나라다 봐이나 다 매상마 쇠타줘레스 베타다 나다 소보여라. 딘데게 쇠셔줘레스 딘데 삼노 당하이나냐 디스 대자기님 뭐 믿고 보면 봤어. 믿고 보고 봤었다는 디스 대자 마차에 디어레스 디와요레스
So even after thinking once, even after trying the practice of thinking about the wife of other people as one's mother, one's auntie, one's daughter and sister, one is unable to sort of overcome one's desire, then one should meditate on the impurity. So one should think of that person's as their skin, as the outer cloth, which covers all of the blood and pus and the flesh and the bones that is inside. And then one should meditate again and again, thinking that the one that is making me think that someone is beautiful or lovely is just the outer cloth, that is the skin. But when I uncover that cloth, the one that I'm having the attachment is nothing but blood and pus and flesh and bone, which is impure, which is a filth. So therefore, by meditating on that, one can also take control of their sense or their sense organ or desire.
근데 딜라다 니슈전 니디 디 가서 제와도 얘기 좀 무슨 거래서 공부 거토는데 얘기 좀 무슨 때 손에 돼 믹사게야 계속 보자 보스 다가나 예배심 최종 부터 보스 대신 쏟아 잡아 송지데스 두베토다 천다 더블라스 메신 되게 데라 안에 이 정도스 어디 가서 오서는 안에 셈 안에 녀면 저러 요더 저러 대연라 다티가 저버데 대연하라 셈데 대연하라 봐 요더 차트 가서 안에디 초가고 담거렸어 저디 가도 전에 간다 거서는 답변에 디 두고 보내신 소소게 그때 부드는 바시 발라 마땅해 소소 보이는 되네 마땅해 되네 선로 송대가 송원나시 되나 안에 베나 노르트버시 노르든도에 소소 노르트 바시는 땅 말아 돼 송원나시 렌제 테르나시 테르든도에 셴라 테도 말아 소소 바 송대라 되나시 송거레스 소가 마사는데 셈데 안에 유베 셈다 녀모 되잖아 소 근데 녀모베 유 녀모베 셈 아니 대형하라 봐 요때 셈데 아니 간데에서 하나 다디 독나시레스 두고 독나신다 아니 가서는 데 가서 오라데 두고 드나죠 독나지 드다 쇠베 독다 동아제베 천자다고다 아니 개제베 라보다 세베 맨나죠 근데 동아제가 다 좋자 그랬어 근데 독에서 드서 잡아는 동아제인가 독산의 동아제인가 천자 조원의 동아제인가 자원은 또 답에서 던데 바전 동아제인가 근데 동아제베 줄이스 자장아 대수나 된저바 대절래 아닌가 봐 중요하죠 그랬습니다.
The verse 22 talks about how to protect the mind. So the mind, it states, Nagarjuna states, protect the unsteady mind, just as you would protect learning, a son, a treasure, or life. Withdraw the mind from sensual pleasure, just as you would withdraw yourself from a vicious snake's poison, a weapon, an enemy, or fire. So whenever the mind tends to incline towards desire or the affliction, when it is sort of inclined towards the five sensory pleasures, the pleasure due to the five sensory organs, one should always try to protect the mind, just like one protects their own learning, or just like one protects their own son, one protects their own treasure or their life, one that considers it to be the most precious. One should always protect their mind whenever one feels that their mind is inclining towards the five sensory pleasures. And so they should withdraw their mind from these five sensory pleasures, such as withdrawing themselves from a vicious snake's venom, or from a weapon, a strike of a weapon, or from an enemy or fire, because when one comes in contact with a vicious snake, or one comes in contact with a weapon, or one comes in contact with an enemy or fire, it gives them a great deal of suffering. So therefore, to avoid these suffering, one should withdraw their mind. One should protect their mind, just like the learning, like the sun, the treasure, or the life, from all the five sensory pleasures.
네,你去在你在说明到的，对外你没工作了噻，对吧？那么的碰我结巴的是，结外帮别跟别这送噻，对他帮你对吃着的是，快点了，这点对他精是，这张个，对样个了吃白吃不到，我等这个对外用的了吃不等这个，你干什呢？说快点了，进别个吃着那些的是，他对外用的对样，对吧？那么他不你这边的呢，你得是。양도 가고 그러지. 한마디로 안에 수풍을 찾겠어. But sing ambassador Kimberlado, Kimberlado, Tana and the coach and Nalode, then I thought I think it's Nalode, the Yabusamara. Then I did it, and what Tana and Dog was Shisu, and they, Mamma, the Tetu, and I sort of Punga, Matayomaris. What in this?
So the verse 23, when Nagarjuna states, the Lord of Conquerors compared desires like that of a kimbo fruits, for they are the cause of disturbance, since these iron chains bind worldlings in the prisons of samsara, renounce them. So the mind inclining towards the five sensory pleasures, these five sensory pleasures are like the iron chains that bind oneself towards the samsara. These are the things that bind oneself towards the samsara. And so the great conquerors who have conquered, the great conquerors or the Lord of Conquerors, they compare these sensory pleasures just like the fruit, the kimbo fruit, which when upon the first glance, it seems to be sort of very tempting or appetizing. But when we cut into that and then we look inside, it is something that is that isn't as pleasant to look as it is outwardly. Similarly, these five sort of sensory pleasures, when one indulges in them for the first time, in the beginning, it may seem that they give a great deal of sort of satisfaction, but as we become habituated to these pleasure, we understand that at the end they only give us suffering. And so therefore, since these are the iron chains that binds us to the samsara, we should renounce them.
And this one, Tango, the bag, the young Chapa de Chachana, Hachangeta, Diris Casana, Gam, Dungam, which is our time. Pesachana Tang on the Chapa de one, Pesachana, and that the young Chasa de la Sukta Mamoyora. That didn't any Pena Chirung over the Chabe, that Jupenjola Chabe, Chapa Wange, Nikatanga to Shivanaji, Namichim Sangma, and the Joshua Sopata, and the Tamata the Tasa, the Sopanezu Mamoyungota, the Nichuza Kasakan. The young and the Children, Chilo did it now, Mate, and the Yola Chapa, to Jawang. There must any Panjo, and Milapato Chapa Wange, Mipen to Troponi, and the Tasha. Tile chesala ya she chaba na ta ngama ne pesa sana ha joge chekto ko chojine do ma chen ni ba chora ta ding ma ja ta mo chora de chunga jenje mi sayam tongda mambo ge ane seso shoyer denje shosa tana ma ja ra shoyer na ya pot chaba na de kapsa pa ge kap ge ane kuri denje o denje ge ane de ja wang de ngam ni wang ande o de wang ge ane mi mo ser ta de lo mo bang ge se ba chen ta ta do shin ba 유크레인다 네데 러시아 마토시 바르잖아 네 이스라엘 팔레스타인다 이란도 마자고다 데 미모 소쇼도 데도 쇼스 마 용사된도 대제바이나 셈남도 셈가 나라다 되자 되자고 막데 르마도 되자데 간데 총선나 아니 랑진진 또 나저 쇼바나 총사데 랑진진 랑진진 왕급et 다 지장만 알아 보였어 매체도 벌써 완전 했더니 진짜 완전 완전 되고 있어 완전 랑진진 왕가 아니 대상만 내서든 하대 내서 종종 옛날에 치보 대갑도 대갑 점낸 거랑 내서 있나 14번 가서 때 봐야 셈나 또 셈 되자 대한 근데 저나 랑진진 왕가 어때서 나 된저 니맥시 뭐 쉬었어 삼나야 보다이나 내도 때 요도 상만 용사 되는 용 셈나
So we see that the sort of the sensory pleasures is a cause of many or numerous sufferings. And so we see that there are many things, many cases where a great deal of suffering might arise. And then when we check the reason, that the cause of these, we find that the cause of most of these suffering is due to attachment towards these sensory pleasures. And so in the previous sessions, we have also talked about these cases where families get separated. Families become separate. There is great arguments between the families due to, let's say, inheritance and wealth. And then in the surface, we see that it is because the arguments is because of the wealth. But then deep inside, when we analyze, we understand that all of these is because of greed, because of attachment towards the sensory pleasures. And similarly, two very good friends, might become enemy because of their sort of attachment towards a single person. And so two very good friends could become enemy. And then when we analyze or scrutinize on this greatly, we understand that the cause of these things is the attachment towards the sensory pleasure. Similarly, if we talk about the wars that happened, the First World War, where millions and millions of people lost their life. And when we try to understand, when we try to analyze the cause of these, we understand that the cause, many of the cause of the particular war is only because of the greed of the leaders at that time, the greed that the leaders that were living at that time, and because of that greed, they waged wars, and because of which many millions of people suffered. And similarly, in this very contemporary time, we have the Ukraine and Russia war. We have a war between Israel and Palestine. And when we come to the main cause of all of these, we come to the understanding that it comes from greed. All of these stems from the greed. And then the greed itself comes from the self-cherishing mind. The mind that says, we need it, we need to conquer it, we need to have this. And then when we think about that sort of mind, which is the self-cherishing mind, it arises greed. And because of that greed, because of the inclination of the greed, we see these great wars which are being waged. So all of these incidents, when we look about all of these incidents in the smaller scale, we see dispute between two friends, dispute between family. In a greater scale, we see dispute between countries, wars being waged. When we carefully analyze every one of these situations, we see that all of these are caused by greed. And when we analyze why greed arises, we come to the understanding it is because of this self-cherishing mind, the mind that says, I need it, I need to conquer it.
그래서 나 간데 Geshe Lobsang Tenzin 그런 거다. 남아 주변 손스. 전이지데 그바군이고 만화제도 연대군이시스. 당한 저기 강하다. 뭐 좋은데 뭐 쉬웠지. 라치제도 왕충스. 저도 라치제도만 용당 버렸어. 다 시제제도 저번에 연대 탐자 시단을 지랬어. 라치제도 그바 네 매력봐. 강아 차장게 아니 중사도 못해. 라치제도 시작했어. 저도 라치제도만 근데 걸려 버려 당한테. 옛날 오래지 가자. 오래지도 고르스. 강아 간 중사대. 파트너nya 수 맞다. 나눠였다. 나지지지. 막막 삭바도다. 저기 잡는 거와이 날에 란지지디 왕게 아니 란자 신방 삼을리는 거라. 맞게고 신방 거였어. 삭바도 아니 sepsi 나눠라다. 지나다 뱃 란자 신방 삼로데 뱃 거라. 쉬워져요다. 막 소번이나 직한 거 직계웠어. 뱃 거라. 란자 신방 삼로 제 숙주 몰라. 대전전에 다 먹을 때 원미 먹었지. 중사대 다 매기 삼론 받고 방 중. 란자 신방 삼로 란지지. 어디에 도와줘.
Geshe tanda di lama chaba tsik kwane chidoro chida.
란지지 고박군이고.
Rangi
란지지
chid
고박군이고 만원지지 연대군이 시스. 대제
manam chidsin
다제집엔 연대군이 시.
dasu.
대제 다제집엔 나줘나 냠냠님은 왔으니 다 다시 냠제가 삼당한데 시오라 남아줘.
Geshe Lobsang
최진
chudi dasu.
최진네.
Chudi. Uh, so so now Geshe Lobsang Tenzin, in his text of Lama Chöpa or Guru Yoga, he says that the self-cherishing mind is the source of all suffering. And to cherish the sentient being is the source of all happiness. So in this particular understanding, it is said that the self-cherishing mind is the cause of all suffering. But the most important thing is that one should identify that this very self-cherishing mind is the one that is causing all the suffering that they are facing. It is inwardly. The cause of all suffering is not something that is outwardly, but something that exists inwardly. And the very cause of that particular suffering that is caused by inwardly mind is because of the self-cherishing mind. So we understand, and especially in the politics, we have this idea, we have this great, there is this great root of self-cherishing mind in politics, because of which there is the mind that says that I shall have the victory and others should be defeated. And because of that mind, which tells us that victory is something that should be for the self and the defeat is something for the others, we see that actions are commenced due to the influence of these kind of mind and therefore great on others and self. So therefore, the self-cherishing mind is the cause of all suffering that is done either to others or to self.
근데 이제 다 아니 주어되나요나.
So Geshe is asking now if anyone has questions regarding today's session.
Yes, please. So, in relation to these teachings, obviously, Nagarjuna was speaking to a man, but in interpreting that, could Geshe just clarify that there's nothing in these teachings to suggest that a woman is, say, a daughter is less important than a son, or that these teachings, apply equally if the subject matter that Nagarjuna was speaking to was a woman. There's nothing to suggest a woman would be inferior to a man. And secondly, I'm also struggling with this, the concept of abortion. There may be situations, say, when a child has been raped and their mental health is affected. Is there some clarification on what is meant by these teachings? Because obviously compassion and preservation of perhaps a mother's life would also come into it.
Laso Geshe Morangi Tuani Torwa. Toma di Kareshla Nanga Suki Tata de Langa Suki shitting Shepati Shesa Tinga to keep a pojila shete shasla Torwa. And in to shitting Shepati casing out to give a po maimba chenga to nga to pumejila shaki yusna. Tanta diki shitting ki joba de tang shitting de langa to ki zo pomelang is nga to ki duja zo jinsna. Pume Shepati duja member jizingre best nga zo. Yo jizingre best and to a tangpo diresha. 아니 저니바 디카레실라 나가 단데 게실랑가 저 단다 ngal nangdo nga puku se di kola yoro nga zo dila khalas nga zo kesi nga zo pime la so pati nga zo puku chunju ji kesi nga zo mi ki tseyom tang wo che di kembe nga zo ki tap ngal na puku cha yosna ani nga zo dendre ki puku di nga zo ki ta nga zo ki ngal nangdo se wa la so pati dendre ches na nga zo ki ko tikpa yimba ji she yore bes nga zo 디메나 nga 저 내가 내당 가시지라 간대열라나 부구 딩알나 부구 차교디 부구 딩아 저기 갈라나 마케라 강에 슈쳔보 슈테 아니 아마 랑기 체소데라 냥가도 테스나 덴제 갑송아 저기 다 부구 디세고 총아 라소바 덴데 제소나 ngal낭로 덴데 지랑아 저 종을 주숨 상대가 좀 미게 착을 베스 디도랑아 저기 공부를 주기 지 장마치 송유를 베스는 근데 주원이 고서
다 당보 되바데 데 간세 시드인데 개와 포지라서 오늘 덴바레 다데 가잖아 저 안에 건물을 줬게 되라 저거 저 상으로 송라 저거 저 상보데 보이면 son다 다 동원서 송사데 저거 저 상보 송라 쉬울라 안에 메시 발로 거쳐 이나 다데 가서 저거 저거 저 상보인데 보이면 son다 근데 데 단단하게 도시 몇 가서나 배면을 잡고 착박으로 쉬고 배면을 잡고 착박으로 쉬도 되네 저거 저 상보 배면이 던져 봐 메토고라 서버 고면 쉬고라 다 같이 값도 저기 저거 저 상보 범어이나 보긴 여버들 쉬고 보이니 메도는 쉬고 괜히 메도는 쉬는데 보게 안에 불러 착박도 도야지도 안에 괜히 메 가르가면 되시고 그래서 안에 보면래 봐 자야요를 봐도 카보야를 수수 고갈내 줘야지 보이나 어느 보면은 님베든다 요레스 되는지 수수 보면은 보기 님베든 sometimes 지금 되잖아요 봐 그것도 보면 지금 맞죠 말이지 대체 아니 제가 당보디라 니바데 단다 칼라스
아 제염데 계속 뭐춘추 제염 따는 거 보고 찼나
네, 다 된저 지단계 종의 조선 가서 다 보고 잡아자. 아니 세 삼상 그 백에도 보고 뭐 맞춰. 사비 매와서 세 삼로당 그러나 제 근데 백에 씹어 있나? 배자다 있나? 데 쳐고스. 데 가세 소제바 쳐고스. 가잖아. 소제바 배자나 가잖아. 미안 미리 소제세 유들라 미안 미리 착발라. 미리 착발라 잡은 내가 가다 잡은 내가 가셔. 잡은 내가 가서 미샤시면 내가 되는 너는 너보다 또 당주와 일하주바 시어다 남시 쇼는 고 림바도 입도 저러 고 주와도 당나 남아면다 가 관계 아니 민메다 가 다샤 근데 값서 안 매워서나요 그노 상마 세워 삼산다 그노 여바다 근데 관계 제와이나 아니 미세버 가데 미세버 레도 차도스 쇼단 쇼 시샤도로 제가 시와이나 대체 그랬어 애니베트네 셴바다 가서
아 계승아 저기 내단데 가시지나가 저기 아메 응알나 보고 차지 보고 맞게 깔려 쇼체 아마 코랑 소소 채소 년가 총스나
데 따데 소니를 도용 거라 따데 담발래 먹다 하루 거래 세줘라 따데 라트데나다 갑트데네 직 소저베치도 직세 버서라 따데 에네 렐라워야 마스라 그저데 소레 저데 소레 지간다 그 충종에 직접 버려서 저라 근데 따네 따 제답들에 매바는 내가 플라네 내가 들었대베가네 탑시 니레 메나 따직 맞아라네 내가 플라 가적 거 가르쳐도 들었대네 탑시 메나 제요 말스 나타 테고서 그노세 something about it 껴배 광 저바이나 냥제 광 잖아야 디스트럭스 다디 베치 디 줄시블라 베트
So the answer to the first question. So in this particular dialogue, we see that it's a sort of a teaching that is directly directed towards the king Gautami Putra, who is a man at that case, in this case. But then this is just in the text, but in a wider context, it could be taken in account to anyone that is reading the text. So if in case in this text we see that the kind of advice that was given, like for example, to avoid a desire to avoid the wife of other people, this was specifically said because it was said to the king Gautami Putra. But in case if it was Queen Gautami Putra, then Nagarjuna would have said, avoid desire towards the husband of other people. So therefore, it doesn't matter who is the disciple of this, who is the target of this teaching. Nagarjuna is talking to everyone without any difference towards being it a male or a female. If a disciple that is reading this text is a female, and then they sort of like someone that has the source of desire towards a male, then they can use that particular logic, and then instead of the wife of other people, they could think about husband of other people. So therefore, there is in this text there isn't anything that specifically states the inferiority of a female towards a male disciple. Rather, it states that both the male and the female disciples are the same, just the difference between the sort of subject that they can change in terms of practice. Now, the second one. So let's say a child has been raped. So now if that particular child that is forming in the womb of the child, if it goes through the 5 stages of taking birth, which we talk about in the sutra of the life taking in the womb, if it's something that has a consciousness and is something that is not an imminent danger to the child, then if the one that is doing the abortion does it with the intention of thinking that I want to kill this baby, then according to the sutra, all the 3 steps will be completed. And there will be the karma of the non-virtuous action of killing a person. But if there is like an imminent danger to the soul of, imminent danger to the life of the child, of the mother, and then there is a choice between whether to save the mother or the child, then it is a very difficult choice, because now it's the choice between 2 lives. One should make the decision and think which life is more important, which is a very difficult decision to make. But then at the end of the day, one should make this decision, but one should make this decision with a great compassion. With a great compassion, they should decide which life to sustain and which life to abandon at that very moment.
Penatanda desareka 대변인제 제다 미나 동동세지 되게 어느 송봉가 잡으세요 좀지셔야다 나뭐 아니 자절인가 뺐대 누구랑 같은 송봉갑자 들어가 가서 찍라는 송배 그 구대저데 대변인제 제다 배천주스 봐 송바탐제 전주스 봐 갑자 사토가 전주스 봐 다고도 송배 넘버도 되네 자절은 누구랑 같은 누구랑 줄롱도 되네 딴 누구시오랑도 되네 다 미나 동동세지 그 병함 쉬었지 다 고도 상마 세잖아 누구 상마 알아라사래 섬 병함 쉬었지인데 다 대변인제 거기 안에 병함도 하고 아니야 하고 마세다 그 고도 세래 미상마 전주스만 앞에 세래 그래서 코스에와 전주스만 앞에 세나 근데 코랑 그때 집어치마도 시부 동안 양해랬어 냐와는 냐와를 동안 시부 양도 해랬어 다 대체도 아닌가 코스에 봐이나 미직 동안 가디레 미직 살조레스 전주스만 앞에 세버네 거기 동안 양해 주도 코랑 그 전주스만 앞에 소제 주도 터져도 세자 세대 인제군들랑 세 그래서 되는 거랑 안에 미세베 레사요 말스 다 대야 안에 채토 냠내 집에 졌다 전주선바에 다 냠내 주대 지단게 소주 나와대 안에 전주선바에 채토블라 마도 간주만 줄라 소주 나와대 마다 배잖아 시원되네 소주 나와서 줘라 어디
One particular example in which the action of killing may not actually manifest as the completion of the action of killing is the instance of the Bodhisattva captain. So a captain of a ship, Bodhisattva, he was taking 500 merchants from one place to another. So amongst these 500 merchants, there was also one bandit, the black-faced bandit. So according to through his sort of like understanding, he understood that the Bodhisattva captain, he understood that the bandit was after the life of these 500 merchants, and then because to earn a lot of money, he wanted to kill all the merchants. But then the Bodhisattva captain, he foresaw what would be the consequence of killing these merchants. He foresaw that this particular bandit, if he kills these 500 merchants, he will be suffering in the hell for infinite eons. And because of that particular reason, the Bodhisattva captain killed the black-faced bandit. In this case, we see that the action of killing was done, but the intention was so that he could be saved from the infinite eons of suffering in the hell. So therefore, in the sutra, the only exception which is given towards the killing is that if you do the action of killing with the intention of the generated mind of a bodhicitta. So if it is by the mind generated of the bodhicitta with a great sort of purpose, then that particular action of killing will not manifest itself as the complete action of killing a person. But other than that, there is no exception to this particular action. Every action that is done will be considered as, if it has an intention, if it has the object, if it has the follow-up, it will be considered as a complete action of killing a person. And karma will be manifest.
그래서 당한테 가짜다 그거 왔다 했다. 배전하 시더라. 가짜다 그거 왔쳐도 되네. 딱 가짜이나 그거 왔쳐 보시오제나. 딱 가짜이나 샤샤야지. 디네 내다한테 삼다 용거스. 근데 내가 소제데 부다 아마니 가르세고서 데베 당가데 가보시오 렐로. 다스 내가 데베 가짜다 그거 왔다 디네 관계 타주 체제래 맞다. 다 다가나 레세 렌지 디요 말스. 디랑 레세지.
So in Buddhism, we have this very important concept, which we have these regulations, but these regulations can sometimes have exception due to great purpose. So the question that you have asked about whether to save the life of a mother or a child, in that particular case, you must understand the purpose. It is a very, very difficult decision to make, whether to save a child or a mother. So in that very situation, the very purpose of the action should be considered greatly. And if the purpose outweighs the restriction, then one should do according, one should commence the action accordingly.
Thank you, Geshe-la. Thank you.
네, 더저도 인사하다.
It seems that this is it for today.
So we start with the dedication prayers. Dedication prayers from Shantideva's way of the Bodhisattva. May all beings everywhere, plagued by suffering of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one afraid of belittled, with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored and finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicine be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruits. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever disease there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other, for as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain. Until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. And now I would like to end the session by thanking Geshe-la for the teachings and Tenzin Lakpa for the translation. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the participants, of course. And I would like to remind you that the next class is happening on the 14th of July at the same time, 3 p.m. in the Indian Standard Time. So I would like to thank you again, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much, Geshe-la.
Okay, thank you. So much, Lawala and Illa and everyone. 2 months holidays.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Hello, you said July?
Yeah, July. Yeah. 2 months holiday. Okay.
Bye, everyone, till then.
Okay, then
Thank you. See you
Thank you.
everyone in July.